What's up YouTube, it's Nico77025. I'm here to show a few updates on the elevator, the Redpower 2 Epic elevator. First of all, the last thing I noticed, or the one thing I noticed from the last video was I didn't show the interior of the elevator that well. I'm going to go ahead and go to the purple floor, or that's magenta, excuse me. So this is the inside of it. As you can see, it works. You know, with frames, there is always the visual glitches. They're quite more noticeable whenever you're using high definition texture packs and stuff like that. It just doesn't draw it fast enough. And that's even with my beastly computer. Anyhow, one thing I wanted to point out are for frames in general, you have to use covers and panels. Covers basically make the frames not stick to whatever the cover, like if you attach a cover to the frame, like this is a frame here, but that's got a panel on it. So a cover does the opposite. The panel here will make this cover and this cover attached to it at permanently, and it'll move with the frame. And a cover, if this was a cover, whenever we would go down, these would actually go up. And these buttons are actually attached to this by the panels that are connected to the frame. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, I didn't mention this here. This here is a timer, and this here is a stealth state, and basically this is keeping this lit, which is telling us that the doors are safe to open. I've changed that to motors off now because it's doing more than doors now. So now whenever this 777 signal is on, that means that the motors aren't running, which means the doors are safe to open and other things. But I was going to say this timer on this stealth state should be set to the same time. If they're not, one will overlap the other and throw it off. That's just a better look at it. This is the NOR gate, saying that there's no signal, from the motors, so it's okay, and then it inverts it. If I was to break that, it activates and turns off the safe door thing. The one thing I mentioned before, I also added this in, but that's so I can cut off the power of the solar panel. I mentioned before that one of the major problems with this was people pressing multiple buttons at the same time, or why it's in operation. I'm going to bring this down so I can demonstrate some stuff in a minute. Like I said, if you're in it right now and someone was to press a button and it just happened to line up with the elevator, it was on a floor indicator, it would actually send the math, in whatever timer is going. I think it's this one right here. Well, the other timers would start ticking too, because it's got its conditionals. So it would throw the motors off and you wouldn't end up where you're supposed to, which is actually a pretty big problem if you're on a server with a lot of people and, they don't know that you're using it, or they just want to troll you or anything. Well, I have fixed that problem. It ended up being a lot more work than I anticipated, but it works, and you can no longer break it by pressing multiple buttons. My idea was this. I tried to explain it a little bit last time, but I'm going a little more in depth now. This is a frame motor. This is a frame motor. There's a bat box there. This is two frames. There's covers on all sides of it except this side. This side has a panel like I was talking about before. The panel is attached to this brown cable. The brown bundled cable, if you remember from the last video, is the level indicator. So basically all the information has to go through there. None of the AND gates will work without this. So if we use this motor here, it breaks the line. So the elevator will not work now because this line is broken. And so that was my idea all along. However, doing that was a lot harder than I anticipated to get it to work right. First of all, I did it to where the motor's running signals were the way to break it. And if the motors weren't running, however, the stop part works fine. It's the motors are active. That would come off of here and it would go to this line. The thing is there's a large delay by the time it gets there to there. So with that delay, someone could still, press 2, maybe 3 buttons. Somebody, something can happen. So it had to be faster coming off this end. And the only way you can get faster is if you take the direct signals from the buttons itself, from the other buttons. So if you take it from the elevators, which is the yellow cable, or if you take it from the call signal. So what I did was I had to cut it off before, basically right after it got it. So once you press the button, and let's say you press, you're on the first floor, which is dark blue, and you want to go to the second floor, which is light blue. So as soon as you press the light blue button, it sends the signal and it does that math, but at the same time it instantly cuts this here. So no more signal. So at the same time it's sending the signal to do the math, and it cuts that information right behind it, so you can't send more than one signal. That led me to have to create this here. This is what I'm calling Mother Brain. And basically this side and this side are mirror images. The only part that changes is when you get here to this inverter cell. But what it is you have the elevator cable coming in, and you have the call button cable coming in, and then from that on it's all identical. Well, it's mirrored identical. But what I did was I ran every color, there's 16 colors, through a NOR gate, and a NOR gate simply states that it's on unless you get a signal from one of the 3 sides of the NOR gate, which the 3 sides are set by the colors in this case. So if you were on the blue level and you wanted to go to the second level, that'd be light blue, it would send it here, the blue signal would go in here, and it would turn this off. That works for any of these. So if any button gets pressed in the elevators, it turns off one of these lines, and these lines go into an AND gate stating that all these lines have to be lit for the signal. So if one of those buttons gets turned off, it then turns off this AND gate here. So the signal is dying basically, and it goes into another AND gate. So basically you've converged all the information, all the 16 colors into one signal. And even though this one's still on, it's running into an AND gate. The middle redstone torch is deactivated, so it's only the 2 outside. And since this signal's not being met, this signal's not being met, therefore this signal's not being met. And it's the same thing for this side. It's just this is coming from the call panel versus the elevator, and both of those go into this AND gate, which this middle one's started off. And so if any button is pressed from the call panel or the elevator, this AND gate gets killed, which turns off this and inverts, and it turns into a pulse. So this light doesn't mean nothing. That was helping me make sure it was working. And it goes into this Redpower here, and comes out here. Yeah, it goes in there, and it activates this motor saying back up. So I'm going to demonstrate it from here. This is the call button. So if we were on the orange floor, which I believe is 3rd floor, and we hit the button, as soon as we hit this button, it's going to send the math to the boards, and at the same time it's going to pull the frame away. Bam. So no more buttons can be pressed, nothing can be calculated, and it's not going to do anything until these motors shut off. And once these motors shut off, the stealth state will activate, turning this on, which it's done, and it activates this. It activates the safe doors, and it also activates a pulsar, which comes back in here and turns on the other frame. And the other frame moves back in place and replaces the brown cable, which allows information to pass again. Now, that was all fine and dandy. I was happy, but this caused one major problem. That problem was, if you are on the orange floor, which we are now. See, we're on the orange floor. Everything's working, it's open and all that. But if somebody was on the orange floor and they press the orange button again, well, this logic dictates that if any button is pressed, that it must instantly move the frame back, cutting the cable, which it does. And that was the problem. The going back part, you know, it didn't go back. I had to install something to make it go back. And the only way to make it do that was to have a way to have it signal that if you're on the orange floor and you get an orange signal, you need to go back, which actually turned out to be a lot harder than I anticipated. And that led me to add on these boards here. Now, in hindsight, now that I know this, I would actually just add these boards to the top of these. When I originally built it, I would have built it deeper, and these boards would all be on top of the other ones. They don't fit it perfectly because you don't need as much logic and wiring, but you do need the brown signals because you need the level indicator. And what's going on here is, since we're on the orange floor, which is here, that audio thing is still happening. I don't know what's up with the pistons and the audio. It's like whenever I fly by them, sometimes they activate even though they're not opening. Anyhow, so I had to, make a way that if you press the button of the level that you were on, that it would go back. And what that basically made me do is I had to create new AND logic, which would fit in these boards, like I said, but basically it's the same color. Again, these are the call panel sides, this is the elevator sides. So if we look at this one, remember that the covers here indicate what floor. So if you're on the green floor, which we're getting the brown signals as the floors, so we got a green here. So if we're on lime green, which is the very top one, and somebody is on that floor, if you're on that floor and you're in the elevator and you press green, you get an AND signal. So green floor plus green elevator button equal redstone signal. This middle one's cut off. That's how all of them are set up. Is if you're on the purple floor and you press the purple elevator button, it's an AND and it equals a redstone signal. Same thing for here, but this one is if you're on the green floor, green floor and someone presses the green call button, you get a redstone signal. And that redstone signal is shared throughout this diamond cable. Doesn't have to be diamonds, I just used it. And it goes in all the way to here. This is a repeater. I have it set pretty deep so it can delay. As you can see, like, we are on the orange floor. I'm going to press it. It's going to instantly send a signal here, but this delay is going to give it enough time for it to kick it back. So it's going to break. This motor is going to activate and it's going to push it this way. At the same time, this repeater is going to hold the charge until the delay is kicked in, and then it'll activate this other one. The repeater's holding it. Boom! It lets it go, and it sent it back before I could look. We're on the orange floor, right? Boom. Boom. There we go. It instantly kicks it back. So the next time I build one, I will just add in another layer to these. This was just the easiest way to do it without actually having to tear the roof down and rebuild a bunch of roofing and stuff like that. So that is how you solve the problem of button pushing. This here is just a bunch of thermal piles. It's bluetricity power for the frames, the frame motors. It's just you can do it underground versus solar panels. So I can cut this and I can get rid of everything up top, and it can all be downstairs. That's not really important. That's just power issues. That's pretty much it. The other thing I would suggest is like this here. This is putting buttons on your stuff, so you can manually control it while you're doing your calculations. That just made it go down one, and that makes it go up one. So I can do different things. That's pretty much it. That was just a not really quick, but an update to how to fix the problems that are with it. And that's where we're at. Like I said, if you like it, share it with some friends. Thanks, Nico77025 out.